Okay, so moving into part two of language. And so let's say we've spent a couple weeks, a couple months really developing this awareness around the harsh language, phrases that we use with ourselves out loud and in inner dialogue. Okay, we've really just kind of come to a place where we've spent some time. It's very clear to us how pervasive this is for us. And we've just been with it, noticed it, and just repeated that over and over. Now we're going to move into, okay, so then what do we do about it? It's so integral in the healing from relational trauma to be able to develop a new kind of relationship with ourselves, okay? A relationship that is kind and loving and nurturing versus so punishing, so harsh, so black and white. And so part of this is using new language, new ways of communicating with ourselves, speaking about ourselves. And so how does this look, or how do we do this? So what this can look like, and there's many different ways, but this is, I'm just going to kind of give you the most straightforward way that I encourage with folks is in a moment where you notice yourself really engaging in some harsh dialogue, you're saying really mean things to yourself. Either you are saying it out loud and maybe in conversation with another person, maybe you're saying it when you're telling a story, but this could also be when you're noticing that inner dialogue and you're noticing how harshly you're speaking about yourself in that inner dialogue. You notice it, okay? The first thing that I want you to, so we're really practicing that attunement with ourselves here. The first thing that I want you to do is, so we're noticing it, okay? And we are checking in with our physical bodies. What do I know when I just noticed myself saying something incredibly mean to myself? What am I noticing in my physical body? Okay, starting there, we're reconnecting with our bodies, we're attuning to ourselves, okay? What am I noticing about my emotional state right now? Oof, I feel a lot of shame. And I'm going to pause here for a second because this is very common. A lot of us, when we're in this process, we notice that we said something really, really mean to ourselves. And then we immediately go into this place of shame, which is essentially we're beating ourselves up about beating ourselves up, okay? And so what I want to say is that self-compassion is going to be a major tool here. If we notice ourselves beating ourselves up about the fact that we just spoke to ourselves harshly, we are going to welcome in that self-compassion. Okay, I'm checking with my body. This is a moment of suffering. I just noticed myself being incredibly mean to myself. And then we're noticing, I'm telling myself that I'm totally backsliding in my healing process and that I'm never going to get better. This is a moment of true suffering, okay? This is a moment of suffering. And then I remember, other people feel this way. I am not alone, okay? Other people feel this way. I am not alone. What do I need to do to be kind and loving and nurturing to myself in this moment? So we welcome in a moment of self-compassion here, okay? Might put our hand over our chest. We might just take that real big breath. We continue the process, okay? So I noticed myself speaking harshly about myself. Then I noticed myself beating myself up. Then I applied the self-compassion. Okay, now we've got this clearing, right? I notice myself speaking harshly about myself. This is something that I always find to be, not always, there's that really black and white language. I often find to be incredibly helpful with the folks that I work with is, okay, so if you heard your child speaking about himself the way that you just spoke about yourself, what would you kind of sign on to that? Would you say, yeah, like I agree with that. You're right. You are A, B, or C. Or I think you are permanently damaged, or you do cause me to be wild or whatever, frustrated or angry. And most people, even if we've had an incredible history of relational trauma, we will say, absolutely not. I would never sign on to that. I would never, ever sign on to that. I would never promote that. And I would say, okay, well, that's very, so we have that. So what would you do in that moment that you heard your child or your nephew or that kiddo that you coach sports to or that you teach? What would you say to them if you heard them speak about themselves in that way? What would you do? And it's amazing how people know innately what they would say. Oh, okay, like I would get down to their level and I would I would look at them and I would say, buddy, that is not true at all. I am so sorry that you feel that way or that you believe that. I want you to know that that is not true. You are a good person. There is nothing wrong with you. You didn't cause that. Okay? I am here with you. And I love you, I care about you. I am here to remind you time and time again that that is not true. So people know what to say. This is exactly the language that I want you to be using with yourself. When you catch yourself saying mean things to yourself, I want you to speak to yourself like you would a child that you care deeply about or that you love. Okay? And we may even want to go further. We could say things to ourselves like, oh my gosh, but I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry that you feel that way. I am going to be here as long as you need me to be, to remind you time and time again that that is not true, okay? I'm here to help you with this. I'm not going anywhere. I'm not abandoning you. I'm here with you. I love you. You are such a good kiddo at your core, no matter what. I love you unconditionally. That is the language that we need to be using with ourselves when we catch ourselves speaking harshly to ourselves, okay? Speaking in a hateful way to ourselves. So what we're doing here is we're repairing, okay? We are engaging in the repairing process with ourselves. So I want you to think about it like this. It's like there's been a kid inside of us. This is that inner parenting work. This is reparenting. There has been a kid inside of us all of these years that has believed these things about themselves. Okay, they believe these things to be true. They believe that they are too much. They believe that they are too emotional. They believe that they are selfish. They believe that they are to blame for their parents' anger. They believe that they are to blame for their parent leaving. There's a kid that believes this. And so our job here is when we catch ourselves speaking harshly to ourselves, we are repairing. Okay, we are doing that work that our parent could not do. We are repairing that relationship with ourselves, with that kiddo. We're like retrieving. We're on a rescue mission. I use this phrase a lot. We are on a rescue mission to go and find that kiddo and to repair as often as we need to. Whenever we speak to ourselves harshly, this is the process that needs to occur. That just took a couple minutes. When we get used to this, when we get into the rhythm of doing this, okay, this takes a couple, like maybe 1 or 2 minutes. This is an internal process. Nobody will probably know we're doing this. If you feel like it's helpful, you can journal this. If that helps you get into kind of the routine of doing it, that is wonderful. Do that. This is something that we need to be patient with ourselves about. And I want to just say this. If you find yourself speaking harshly about yourself, that does not mean that you are backsliding in your recovery and your healing. Absolutely not. It does not mean that you're reverting back. That is just part of the process. It's going to happen. Like, we are going to have moments where we speak to ourselves harshly. This is a pattern and a behavior that's been around for decades for many of us. And so it's just going to take time for this to loosen up a little bit, and be patient with ourselves. It does not mean that you're failing or you're backsliding. In fact, let's be accepting of the fact that we are absolutely not going to be perfect in this, okay? What matters is that we go back and we repair as often as we need to, and we get into that habit. I hope you found this helpful. Thank you again for coming on, being willing to learn and grow and expand.